I had no idea. I had no idea that it would, I don't know, be so pertinent. Hey, Wink, how are you doing?
Not bad, not bad. What is it out there? It's 19 degrees. Yeah, we got the 5 to 8 inches that they were expected, and we got closer to 8 than 5, I think. So yeah, so there'll be some shoveling.
I was going to say, Wink,
yeah.
Wink.
Yep.
5 inches is still more than no inches.
Yeah, it is. It is. Man, oh man, oh man, oh man. So yeah, there's that, and but yeah, hopefully this will do it. Hopefully this is it for the year. With any luck at all, cross our fingers. Reminder to get in the chat. Just go to netrootsradio.com. Scroll down to the bottom of the page, and on the right hand side of the bottom of the page, there is a link to the chat. So click that and join us there.
And just one moment, folks. When you're on top of your mic, Wink, I think you're a little hot, so you might want to dial it back just a tad. Not so much the volume, but you just seemed a little buzzy or hot there.
All right.
Well, I also wanted to mention that to the leftish of the chat room link, there is indeed options in which to contribute to the Netroots Radio Resistance Radio cause.
Yeah.
And thank you for those who have been so generous to put us on and keep us on our mission. And also, after show pods can be had by way of Spreaker.
Yes.
Yeah, Spreaker.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the raw data file, as I like to call it, and then the perfected file.
Yep.
The one that's gone through a few bit of vetting and cleaned up the buzzing in the background.
All that good
and
stuff.
all of that, the good stuff.
Yep.
That comes by way of Podbean, iTunes, etc., etc., etc. Let's not forget Stitcher too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, let's not forget them. Actually, I went to the Stitcher site. Now, I may have made a mistake, Wink, but it doesn't seem like anything new from the Netroots Radio group is posted there.
I'll have to check that out.
Check that out. Hey.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. Well, every day it's a new day, and it's a new, the new news is already old news, Wink.
Right.
Now everybody's like saying, "Oh, we're all let down because the big revelation about Trump's taxes was a dud." I don't think so. I think it says many, 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 many different things. I mean, it could have come from John Barron. That was speculated by David K. Johnston on Maddow before they even got to Lawrence. Because you have to consider that. And why only 2 pages? Now, there's a lot that can be gleaned, and, you can see what a scofflaw the guy is. Or, pushing the edges a little bit. So much so that eventually those edges that were pushed are now considered illegal. And one could say, yeah, well, it was legal then. He was following the law, well. If you sit around trying to figure out every last little tidbit, of whatever deductions to be able to take, maybe God's telling you you have too much money. But that's just me. I suppose if I was in the same boat to occupy my time, I might do the same thing. Because I don't understand any other reason for it. I mean, how much money do you need? If you need a deduction, how about making an actual charitable donation rather than one that's funneled right back into you and your mobsters' friends' pockets? Exactly. But that's just me. Actually, we should save more of that Trump tax discussion for when we visit with Angela Marx today. Oh, yes, it's Wednesday. And Angela Marx, of course, Angie in Washington State. For those of you who, well, there's so many that do know her affectionately as that. So, but it's that day, and we get to discuss with her today. These are the issues that we will be discussing here before the last half, and they are: Bannon and Trump have quietly installed an alt-national security council inside the White House, Wink, that has a direct pipeline to white nationalists of the European right. Wilde Getz is marching to Amsterdam to plug the dikes. His big thumb he pulls out his backside. It's all that he has and it's all that he needs.
Yeah. Yep.
I'm just saying. I'm sorry. My old musical theater persona came through. I better put a cap on that. On a more serious note, Florida ex-felons file suit that they have been unlawfully blocked from voting. You know, there's 4 states that just, they're so intractable. Oh, no. You committed a crime. You did the time. You get to serve it for the rest of your life. Ha, ha, ha.
Exactly.
And 6 years after the Fukushima disaster, cleanup costs edge past $188 billion, while hundreds of wild radioactive boars roam the streets. I don't know. I guess you're going to go where the food is, right? Wink. It also occurred to me that this could have been released, though it is reputable. I mean, International Business Times and others, Nature. But what if a Japanese monster movie production company is behind this hundreds of wild radioactive boars roaming the Japanese countryside, just waiting to come to Tokyo to see what's up? I don't know. We better get on it. I'm serious. Call it payback. Hey, and I did allude to the fact that we visit with Angela Marx, and we will today for a discussion about Trump's taxes, Tillerson's sock puppet, and Steve King's other babies. All that, plus the Connect Unite Act Daily Codes community calendar, and more, always more, here on the After Show with that ever so fine fellow on the East Coast, and his name is Wink because of his East Coastal elitism. And you'll find out about that.
Yep.
And this guy all the way back over here, and my name is Justice. And it's not just because of my overbearing elitism. It's truly my middle name. So it's real. And we do this 5 days a week for an hour-ish in this particular tear, in this specific part of space-time. Because who loves you, baby?
There you go.
Well, in the fabric. I kind of, we make it up as we go along. Sort of. We have a template. Fill in the blanks. Alec can do it, so can we. Oh. So infrastructure is still holding up. I mean, Trump voters are saying, oh, well, we just road clearing, what a socialist practice. I mean, it's still happening, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, our roads are all right, I guess, so far.
No, I'm saying that people who voted for Trump aren't complaining that the roads are clear.
Oh, yeah, no.
Okay. Because it seems to me like there's some that are perfectly happy with 24 million people getting kicked off the insurance rolls, not thinking it's going to be them too.
Right, exactly, right.
So,
That's pretty comical in itself, yeah.
You mean those people get to drive on a clear highway in the snow?
Yeah.
We can't have that.
Right.
So let's make it so no one can. I don't know. It seems like a weird...
Yeah, they'll probably cut those funds. No doubt about it, yeah.
We'll see. It's very important, that we, as we spoke with Chris Reeves yesterday, that there are elections happening right now, which means that we need to flip this dynamic that has been in place for so long. And that's where Democrats and liberals never show up for the midterms. But that's next year. But there are elections happening right now. So if people are like enthused and they don't, they can't wait. It's stuff happening right now. And I got to tell you, it greases the engine because when it gets really big for the midterms, that's when we're really needed. Because how dare they? How dare they schedule their state elections in off national election years, knowing
exactly. Yeah.
that there is absolutely a low turnout? How dare they? Well, if they want to play that game, I guess we got to show up for that and show up for the general. We show up for the general anyway, but this is, I think people are knowing that this is like, the midterms are like man in the barricades. At least that's what I like to think, because I'm a romantic, wink. Yep. Okay, an Alt Security Council. I like that. Alt National Security Council. The Strategic Initiatives Group is the White House pipeline to white nationalists of the European right. And this is by Jefferson Morley from Alternet. Less than a month after much-admired Lieutenant General H.R. McMaster took over from Lieutenant General Michael Flynn as National Security Advisor, Trump's alter ego, Steve Bannon, appears to be more in control of U.S. foreign policy than ever. There is little sign McMaster will be able to restore traditional U.S. foreign policy commitments to NATO and the European Union, and every indication that Bannon's shadowy initiatives group, or shadowy strategic initiatives group, denounced by two national security experts as dangerous hypocrisy, is now driving U.S. policy. McMaster, a lieutenant general with a reputation as an intellectual, was perhaps the last gas pope of Washington's foreign policy professionals against radical ambitions of the Trump administration. He was seen as a man who could speak unpopular truths to Trump and block Bannon's improvisations while restoring a degree of continuity to U.S. foreign policy under Obama and Bush. Well, I like the Obama part. The continuity of foreign policy from Bush also includes weird things like, I don't know, extrajudicial islands where laws don't apply and you can torture people that you captured. I don't know. I don't know if I like that kind of continuity. But it's orderly in, a true Teutonic way. See, this is what bothers me, a little bit about Bannon. He puts on the cloak of Teutonic order, but then it's just like total anarchy, Leninist stuff. Let's just burn everything. Burn it all. If you're going to burn it, you burn it in an orderly fashion and you make a record. Damn it.
Right.
God, don't they know how society and civilization works? See, that's the problem. Bannon wants to destroy that too.
Yeah.
How dare
Let's bring it all down. Yeah.
I don't know. I'm an historian. You got to have a record, at least. I don't know. And you don't want to leave it up just to the Mormons' genealogy division, okay? Though they be very thorough and quite accurate, you just don't. No sooner had Flynn been fired over undisclosed meetings with a Russian diplomat, it was reported that McMaster would impose order on Flynn's chaotic NSC, purging ideologues and removing Bannon from the National Security Council as urged by Admiral Mike Mullen, the former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. That Obama acolyte come to destroy us and work from within. They're working against us. They hate us. Well, though that be true, I don't know. There's a reason. I think in that particular case, their paranoia might prove to be true because, something's got to be done. Given the gravity of the issues of the NSC deals with, it is vital that the body not be politicized, and Bannon's presence as a member of that body politicizes it instantly, Mullen said. McMaster urged Trump not to use the term radical Islamic terrorism, arguing, along with virtually every other U.S. military leader, that the phrase only alienates friendly Muslims and increases the risk to U.S. personnel stationed in Islamic countries without providing any military or political advantages. But, the thing is in the White House is, well, it feels good. Well, what about 24 million people getting kicked off insurance and many millions possibly dying within I don't know a year or two and what about our troops in harm's way? I don't know. It feels good to do it. It doesn't matter. Blip on the screen. Cost of doing business. It's not personal, Wink.
Right.
It's just business. Just business. Bannon remains on the NSC Principals Committee, while the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff is now only a part-time participant, and just proves that, there's certain kinds of intellectuals that they like there, and there's others like Bannon who fancies himself as an intellectual. That's what's funny about that. Of course, I would like to know the gauge in which General McMaster is deemed an intellectual. I mean, is it because he has actual books in the bookcase versus, the kind that are just, a Trump Louis, that's painted. It looks like a bookcase, but it's really just, you know what I'm talking about. It makes you wonder. Oh, I know what it is. He got Sun Tzu's Art of War along with Clemenceau. If he just had Clemenceau, he'd just be like a regular military jarhead type guy, right? But because he had Sun Tzu, that could be the reason. Bannon hates Sun Tzu. There's too much order in it, Wink.
Right.
Okay. Bannon approved the visit of French far-right leader Marine Le Pen to Trump Tower in January. He published Dutch anti-immigration Geldweders marching across Amsterdam, going to Pluggerdyke. I can't help myself. And now he seems to be targeting Angela Merkel, the pro-immigration German prime minister who has emerged as the de facto leader of Europe, if not the whole free world. Merkel, who faces elections this fall, certainly sees Bannon's media strategy as a threat. All right. Bannon in very many ways fills the Leni Riefenstahl role in terms of the use of visual propaganda and a multimedia approach, across various platforms, be they print, cinema, or now in a digital format, right?
Yep.
And I have to say that I don't want to say it's effective, but there's some chops involved in the production of it, shall we say?
Right.
I don't want to say that it's artful like Leni Riefenstahl's. Sometimes, if you forget about what she's talking about, if you divorce yourself from what her message was, but just looked at the visuals, they're very stunning, and the composition is, well, it's artful and it might be art, but once you attach the intent, it darkens it a little bit and then brings it down from what I would estimate art to be Leni Riefenstahl's work. But I will say that Bannon's production has maybe an effective propaganda technique to it, obviously, and it appeals versus some others like, Bossie, the guy from Citizens United, the anti-Hillary movie that, that's right. What that was all about. Yep. Citizens United.
Yep.
Was that they made an anti-Hillary movie and they were pissed off that, they couldn't show it within like the last 30 or 15 days before the election or something. Right? That was a piece of, ugh.
Yeah.
I'm serious. I mean, it was bad. I mean, it was worse than like in a garage type production. Where I got to say, Bannon, his time in Hollywood and making movies and producing and being part of that process in Hollywood, at the very least, allowed him to network with like-minded technicians to be able to put out a product. And though I hate, or I am loath to admit it, I think with the help of certain, shall we say, Cyrillic speaking populations of technicians have been able to widen the platforms in which he can do this propaganda, and it frightens even the Germans like Merkel. Power of the White House, plus, I don't know, somewhere near the Black Sea. Maybe it's the Caspian. We'll have to find out later. This next article is by Kira Lerner from Think Progress. 7 former felons filed suit against Florida Governor Rick Scott on Monday, claiming that the state's process for restoring voting rights to ex-felons is discriminatory, arbitrary, and unlawful. The 7 citizens who had their right to vote permanently revoked when they were convicted of felonies claim in a class action in federal court that the governor does not give them a fair chance to restore their rights. Florida is one of 4 states that permanently disenfranchise anyone with a felony conviction unless they are able to apply for clemency. Yeah, good one for that. As a result of Scott's decision to mandate a 5 to 7 year waiting period before former felons can apply for clemency, just 2,487 petitions have been approved since Scott took office in 2011. Meanwhile, more than 10,500 people are waiting for consideration, according to the lawsuit. Oh, yeah, file your papers and, keep bagging those groceries for 7 years and we'll see where we are. It is common for an applicant to wait as many as 10 years, if not more, without any update from the board before he or she is finally given a hearing date or notified the application was denied or granted without a hearing, says the lawsuit, filed by the advocacy group Fair Elections Network. Well, damn them, Wake. The lawsuit, which seeks class action status on behalf of all formerly convicted felons in Florida, is not the only potential avenue toward restored rights in the state right now. The state's Supreme Court heard arguments last week about whether to allow a constitutional amendment on the 2018 ballot, which would allow all voters to decide if the right to vote should be automatically restored to all former felons. If passed, the amendment would add roughly 1 million more voters to the rolls. Only those convicted of murder or felony sexual offenses would be excluded. If either the amendment or the lawsuit are successful, Florida would join the growing list of states, making it easier for people with felony convictions to vote. According to the Sentencing Project, 23 states have expanded their voter eligibility laws to include more former felons, and an estimated 840,000 citizens have regained their right to vote. I call me a purist on democracy and serving your time. But I've never been a fan of putting a scarlet letter on people that they have to carry around for the rest of their lives to show that, they were convicted of a crime, and then that excludes them from really becoming full functioning members of the community, which I'm sorry, I fall on the side of prison reform for, rather than retribution, but rehabilitation. And this lawsuit right here, in many, many ways, is the war between retribution and rehabilitation, that tug of war that's always gone on in the prison industry. Or just, I don't know, our genetic reptilian knee-jerk reaction to snap at things just because, I don't know, feels good, Wink. Feels good. Feels good to do.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Okay, I'll try to get through this here quickly. This is by Joe Rome, a founding editor of Climate Progress, part of one of the tabs on Think Progress. 6 years after an earthquake and tsunami led to 3 nuclear reactors melting down, Japan is still generating and struggling with staggering amounts of radioactive waste. In November, the Japanese government said cleanup and compensation costs for the March 2011 Fukushima Daiichi disaster would be an unprecedented $180 billion, double the previous estimate. Nuclear safety may not come cheap for an industry that is increasingly non-competitive nationally and globally, but lack of safety is very costly indeed. You know, Wink, pay me now, or you'll be glowing forever. Yeah. Well, at least, for what? What is it? Do we even know what the half-life is on this? I mean, we're way out past the age of the universe now, aren't we?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay. And I'm not talking 6,000 years. I'm talking about,
Yeah.
Okay. Soaring costs and accumulating waste aren't Fukushima's only problems. While the government wants to start lifting evacuation orders on some towns within the 12-mile exclusion zone, potential returnees have to deal with hundreds of radioactive wild boars roaming the streets. Reuters reports that some boars have levels of radioactive material 103 times above Japan's safety standards, which in this case is not telling you that after Fukushima, the Japanese government actually raised the level in which they say, well, it's only damaging up, you're okay up to this point. Okay. 130 times above Japan's safety. You don't want to stand next to those kinds of animals, do you, Wink? Not for very long. I mean, is it true? I mean, they're I guess the term would be radiating that out. Is that you don't necessarily even have to consume it,
right? No, you don't have to, no, right? You wouldn't have to consume it.
As if you'd be able. Well, who knows? See, this is what's scary. I don't know. Wild boar. There's a market for it.
Yeah.
And I bet you radioactive wild boars, because of its specialty quality, Wink, it'll be a specialty item.
Oh, yeah.
And it'll cost more. Yeah. It'll cost more. Yep. Absolutely. That's how they have to market it. Look what they've done with bacon. Everybody wants to have bacon and everything, Got to have it.
Yep. Even in ice cream, yep.
And perhaps more shocking is that 6 years after the meltdowns, Fukushima is still generating and dealing with unimaginable amounts of contaminated waste. 400 tons of contaminated water each day. More than 962,000 tons stored on a site. And storage is running out. Yeah, they'll just dump it in the ocean, Wink. That's okay. We actually have a when you buy seafood along the Oregon coast, they give you like radioactive levels, and you can actually some fishmongers actually have Geiger counters.
Oh man,
I'm not kidding you. I am not kidding you. I suppose you don't want to buy it if it's kind of ticking. Yeah. But then you could also market and say, well, if there's any like parasitic worms, well, they've been taken care of, haven't they?
No doubt about that. Yeah.
All right, let's get to our Jim Hightower break, and we'll connect with Angela Marx during that time. But we'll come back and go through the Connect, Unite, Act Daily Codes community calendar, and then our discussion with Angie. You're listening to The After Show on Networks Radio with Wink and Justice, and we will be right back.
It's time to state the obvious. The President of the United States is deranged. I don't mean he's merely idiosyncratic, nor do I say this as a political jab. I mean that Donald J. Trump literally is mentally ill. Okay, I'm no doctor, but you don't need a doctorate in mental disorders to see that his behavior in public and on Twitter is beyond abnormal. It's psychotic. As we've seen, he routinely plunges into prolonged fits of petty paranoia. He succumbs to delusions of imperialist grandeur. He spouts ridiculous right-wing rumors as facts and denies that actual facts are true. And he is pathologically addicted to lying, bizarrely repeating his most blatant fabrications even after they've been totally debunked. A sane, temperamentally balanced president, possessing all the power and majesty that America's supreme office conveys, doesn't get into demeaning public snits with the likes of Arnold Schwarzenegger, doesn't feel a constant need to puff himself up with ridiculously false claims, such as his frantic insistence that the crowd at his inaugural celebration was the largest ever, doesn't rage rabidly at media outlets that displease him, blasting them as enemies of the people, and does not unleash a furious all-out attack on Barack Obama just because some radio talk show screwball made a proof-free claim that the former president had wiretapped Trump's campaign. This is Jim Hightower saying, these are not mere eccentricities, not just Trump being Trump. It's obvious that the guy is not well and is unable to handle the stress of being president. Indeed, his flaky behavior suggests he's on the brink of a personal breakdown, and his ever more frequent retreats to his posh Florida golf resort tells us he doesn't even want to do the job. His loved ones and his party should intervene for his sake and for America's, but they won't. So, will we?
Need an antidote to the progressive blues? Want some good news about how grassroots folks are rebelling against the corporate powers and winning? Well, here's an easy-to-swallow pill for you. The Hightower Lowdown. Hightower's monthly newsletter will give you the lowdown, even as it lifts you up. It's 4 pages a month, jam-packed with facts you can use, actions you can take, and Jim's own Texas humor, all for only $15 a year. To become a lowdowner, go to hightowerlowdown.org.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
Okay, we're back.
And indeed, we are back, and thank you for sticking with us. This is the After Show with Wink and Justice. Justice here along the banks of the Rogue River, in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon on the West Coast. Wink is in upstate New York, 21 on the East Coast. Angie in Washington State is in Washington State.
Yeah.
And our crew are the ethereal creatures who reside in the cloud whose advanced intergalactic technical abilities allow Netroots Radio, and thus by extension the After Show, to span the globe, the solar system, way past the Oort cloud, and way past our imaginable universe. Because in the era of Trump, think big. All right. Today's Connect Unite Act. Big league. Okay, today's Connect Unite Act Daily Coast Community Calendar is facilitated, as it is every Wednesday, by Forrester Bob. And he actually has a pertinent opening day, and it's entitled Weather Chaos.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I said, Wink, 5 inches is still more than 0. It's less than the 8.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Still more than 0.
Exactly.
But, okay, so he has some. Oh, I should mention also is that Forrester Bob is a nature photographer extraordinaire, and you should certainly take a gander at his work, which is at the diary. And there are links at the various areas that we put the links up at. Okay, group forming, so please cosmail Chris the Colodem to become part of that group. And then you'll have Navajo come visit you. Come on. Speaking of which, Navajo maintains the event list, and if you have any diaries about your event or have an event coming up that you'd like her to advertise, it'll also be advertised here, of course, and cosmail her about that. So Colorado community run by Left Candidate in Colorado, Tim, have their Caffeinating Liberally meetup every 4th Saturday of every month And this month it'll be on March 25th. And that'll be at Common Grounds Coffee House, 44th and Vallejo in Denver from 9 a.m. to noonish at the table by the piano. So get a hold of Colorado Tim and Left Candid. Navajo will be in town on April 23rd, the town being New York City. They will be meeting at Spitzer's Corner, 101 Rivington Street in the Ludlow District at high noon. And RSVP with Navajo by Cosmail, and it looks like she's drawing not only a large group, but a very esteemed group too.
Yes.
Thinking Fella and Ojibwa once again are organizing. This time is the third Epic Glacier National Park meetup held June 30th through July 2nd. There is a very important diary about important planning details because you ain't going to Disneyland, okay? It ain't Adventureland at D-Land. Just saying. So get a hold of Thinking Fella and Ojibwa. They'll point you in the right direction of that.
Bring your
and of course,
bag.
once again, very positive vibrations going out to Bill in Portland, Maine.
Yes.
The fellow who runs Cheers and Cheers. He's a little bit under the weather, and we do send all healing energy to him. Yes. And the annual Cheers and Cheers dinner will be held at Netroots Nation on Wednesday, August 9th at 5:30 p.m. at a location to be determined because Navajo will need a Cosmail from you so she can determine the size of the venue. And sometimes it's even bigger than the Netroots Nation Hall. I'm serious. It can happen. And if it gets filled up and you have an RSVP, you only got like the karaoke bars. And that's just a pale imitation of what happens at Cheers and Cheers. I'm just saying.
Exactly.
So that is your Connect, Unite, Act Daily Codes community calendar for the Ides of March.
Right.
Of 2017. And you know what, Angie? I think people get the Ides of March wrong. Everybody thinks that the Ides of March is kind of like, stabbing somebody in the back. But I always thought it was about stabbing someone in the back in groups.
There you go.
Well, it wasn't. That's an interesting thought.
Yeah, well, when you're sitting around with a bunch of jaded altar boys in Catholic school, you come up with these things.
Hey, just as an end capper on your overall overview of the Daily Codes, Sarah R. has a Cheers and Cheers community story up this morning for people who would like to send a message to Bill in Portland, Maine. It's up on the recommended list. Go check it out, recommend it, and leave a message for Bill.
Awesome.
And I totally failed. I should have went to her diary itself. There is a bit of an appeal as well to make a small contribution to get his quilt. Because these, once again, the community quilts are outstanding works of art, but they have personal utility on an emotional and spiritual level. And so help is needed that way as well. And thank you for reminding me. I'll put up the pertinent link on my diaries and blogs. So, Angie, doesn't matter that we got these taxes released as they are. There's once again, I guess we're arguing about things.
Yes, it matters. Yes, it matters.
Because let me just say, I'm a believer that we can juggle many different things at once.
Well, did you watch Rachel Maddow last night?
We recorded it, and we have been playing the 23 minutes of her, a compilation of the 23 minutes that we had during her hour show. Yes.
So I'm in with Jennifer Hayden, who's got a story out this morning about it. I think the Trump people themselves leaked that 2 pages of that return.
Yep.
There's good reasons why, because it's over a decade old. Older is always better. And it makes Trump look like he's paying his fair share of taxes. If they're going to leak it, if they're going to get anything out there to appease, rumor mongering, this was the best way to do it.
Right.
Other than that, it's not so much important, other than it gives people some questions to start asking. There's I think $42 million in income from what's the lowest range of personal businesses? He didn't list it as LLCs or S corps. It's like
AMT
doing business as it's kind of like doing business as business. $42 million worth though. So what kind of companies did he have his ties in that made him $42 million back in 2005? That's the start of the question. But
well, you know what investigative journalists do, and David K. Johnson is one of those, is that you see, I mean, it would be great to have, what is it, the 52 pages in between, you know, that have the schedules and the tables, who paid who,
details,
who he paid, who paid him. But you can go to other public records and find out that in 2005, one of the largest real estate deals that he did with a Russian guy in Florida just happened to be there. And if that does or doesn't show up on that front page in some discernible way, that can raise questions. And well, I don't know. To me, like, even if it was leaked by John Barron, or it could have been John Miller, it opens up a whole can of worms. I don't think this group really knows what they're dealing with when they're dealing with, you know, we love to build up our heroes, and then as soon as there's a little weakness, we just as a society love to bring them down, and Trump is right there. Not that I ever think he's a hero, but
the problem with leaking like that is if you throw a little chum out for some trout and catch some trout, that's pretty good. But if you got a little 9-pound test line out there, you throw out some chum and you catch a giant white shark with it, you're going to be in trouble, right?
I think we're going to need a bigger, deeper state. My God.
It's follow the money stupid. I tweeted yesterday or the day before to start watching for that hashtag FTMS about this tax business, because it's always follow the money stupid. That's always the way that people who commit heinous behavior get caught in the end.
And isn't that telling?
It's always the money.
But isn't that telling that a specific document that is to be released to specifically be able to follow the money because of what occurred? You know, let's be real. You know, even before Watergate. Because those reforms that came so strong after Watergate came in place because of some, you know, kind of fast and loose dealings with the workings and machinations of government.
Right.
So those were put in place because of that. And isn't it telling that the one thing that, like, to be able to follow the money, we're not allowed to have? I mean, it just... And I also love the argument that we still get to hear. Well, people didn't care because they voted for him anyway. I'm all like, well, I don't know. By my last reckoning, there's about 73 million who didn't vote for him. So.
Well, you know, everybody knows that old cliched phrase, be careful what you wish for.
Right.
Well, all of those people in the Rust Belt and lower information voters who think that both parties are the same, and the media taught them to hate the Clintons for 30 years. They're getting what they wish for, but, you know, they weren't careful. They're getting too much of what they wished for, and now they're starting to cry about how they don't like it. But, you know,
well,
it looks like that bill, that AHCA.
Right.
2 days ago, I said it looks like it's DOA. Now it looks like they're going to drunk punch it until it's bleeding in the gutter before it winds up anywhere. I mean,
you know, I'm always
less
interested
popular than Trump in the polls already.
Yeah, which is surprising because, you know, you try to think of things that would be less popular than Trump, and, you know, there's not very many. I mean, even banana
Congress.
slugs. I was going to say banana slugs are endearing. Congress has an endearing quality, a quaint, endearing quality to it now. Even.
Nah. No, everybody thinks that Congress is full of corrupt people who are egomaniacs and out to make themselves a fortune on the public dime. And sadly, in many cases, they are correct about that. But it's not everybody. I met lots of people in the last decade who are involved in politics who are in it because they sincerely think that their actions can make life better for their friends, neighbors, and families across the land. There's nothing wrong with that. That's idealism at its best, right? It's politics is not evil and corrupt. Some of the people in politics are evil and corrupt. There's a big difference.
Well, this is, I always am interested, and I apologize, but I like to look at, say, like the letters that were written during the Civil War, and then kind of glean a more overarching understanding about what occurred. So letters, other, news clippings, just, triangulate. And so I'm interested in wondering if and when and what might be, and I hate this guy Gladwell, the tipping point in which the stereotypical Trump voter will turn on the guy. And when they see 14 million kicked off of insurance the first year, and the average bloke, making 30,000, which doesn't seem like very much, and 8,000 of that's going to be towards healthcare costs, and that wasn't promised. And then this leak of the taxes, and I don't know, I have some blue collar, grease stained hand relatives who would say, how can anybody make that much money? And what is he doing? Putting his name on a building, and that's how he's making his money? I mean, So,
yeah.
Do you in your neighborhood, because Washington isn't all liberal and blue.
Oh no, there's lots of red parts of Washington.
We're like but do you see a turn?
Like a bellwether state. You hear about states in the East being bellwether states, but I have news for them. The media should pay attention to Washington State. It's got a moderate growing population, and it's got a real mixture of red and blue, just like the country does.
There you go.
We look just like the model of the United States now, because we have a couple of big population centers, about 5 of them in Washington State, and the rest of our country is rural people. In my district, my congressional district, there's 1 county that's densely populated. There's 6 counties that are sparsely populated, 1 county with less than 5,000 people. And like the Rust Belt, we lost our major source of middle-class kind of jobs in the 70s and the 80s when the timber industry died and never came back. So people would be well served politically if they paid attention to Washington State, because what happens here is what happens in the country.
Speaking of the timber industry, my great uncle, my grandmother's brother, was a fairly big wig in the Northwest for the United States Forest Service, and he was actually one of the guys that started the hot shots, or at least started that program to parachute out of airplanes and fight forest fires. But I remember when I was a little kid, and we'd go and visit, or he'd come and visit. Every time he'd come and visit, he'd bemoan the fact that they're harvesting trees, but they're not replanting. And he would tell me, 40, 50 years from now, when you're like, older than me, and you're telling your grandkids, where all the wood went. So why aren't we replenishing the forest so we can create a shortage, so that lumber mills could prop up their prices to the point that they went out of business? I mean, does anyone talk about that anymore, or is that a foregone historical illusion?
That's not really what happened. They've been replanting the forest here in the Northwest for more than 50 years. We passed state laws about that a long, long time ago. In fact, you can see commercials in Oregon today from the Oregon Conservancy about how well they're repopulating Oregon forests in the last 35 years. What they harvest now in the last 25 years, what they've been harvesting in our forests are not old growth. They're trees that Weyerhaeuser and other forestry companies replanted 30 and 40 years ago. That's the real truth. But the reason the timber industry died doesn't have anything to do with what we're doing here. It has to do with cheaper wood and cheaper labor to mill that wood in other countries, in Malaysia for the most part.
All right.
Yeah.
No, actually, that's a big complaint. I was just looking for some material online, and I had to be very careful, because what was being passed off as red cedar was really Chinese white cypress stained red. Which is a completely different wood, totally different structural integrity. A much softer wood than what the cedar would have done, and what I wanted to use it for would have collapsed. And I'm like, God, it's just, I'm living among. Well, I should have just went to the mill myself.
We could renew the timber industry in the Northwest if we did what Canada did at least 15 years ago, and I think more like 40 years ago, is they passed a law in Canada that says every tree that gets felled in the Canadian forest has to go through a lumber mill in Canada one time before that lumber can get shipped out of the country. We ship forests full of logs overseas to be milled somewhere else. That's the difference between us and Canada, and that's why Canada still has a timber industry, and we pretty much just have a trees to other countries industry.
Now,
but
I know go ahead. I'm sorry.
There was one thing I wanted to talk about today. I did a chained series of tweets last night, and the last one was about this guy named John Goodnow. He's the guy who co-invented the lithium-ion battery about 20-some years ago, and there's a IEEE.org story out about him today. He now has a glass-based battery that he's working on that might replace lithium-ion batteries and has the ability to store more than 3 times as much energy. This is huge news for the renewable energy field because the problem of getting off petroproducts and onto renewables is the ability to store solar energy because, you know, we can only use solar energy during the day and then we have to store it to be used at night, right? Because there's no sun at night.
Right.
This might be a big deal in the news about renewable energy, so people should pay attention. Glass-based batteries, so sodium glass-based. Yeah.
So that actually dovetails. You know, I like to speak about just what might come up, and this just actually made an association with me here. Will the renewable, this type of industry, be run more and advanced more by the states than before? If we're going to have federal obstructions from the Pruitts and others in this administration?
I would look at government, private project combination kind of projects where you have some public money, some private money. I think that's kind of the wave of the future for decent paying jobs in this country to replace the ones that have been lost in the last 40 years. It's not enough to just try to get businesses to create jobs. That the government's trying to do that for 25 years, and it's really not working for the most part because they're pumping money through tax credits into wealthy companies to try to induce them to create jobs, and that's a failing system because the only thing that creates a job is not a tax credit but a demand from a consumer buying a product or service. So public-private coordinated projects to bring jobs here to the States for people and to create materials that will help build the next generation of energy production in this country from renewable energy. That's what's going to do it, I think. And places like Washington and the Rust Belt, like in Tennessee where Bernie Sanders just had that event with the coal miners, well, they can't get those coal jobs back. They're never coming back because coal's a dying industry because people know more about coal and they want to stop tearing up the ground and pumping toxins into rivers. And the way to do that is to convert to a different kind of energy system. And the kind of jobs I'm talking about are to create the materials to build wind turbines, to build solar arrays. With this glass-based energy, you've already got Elon Musk with his power packs. They've got a huge facility in like New Mexico or someplace where they're building his battery storage, his house batteries. But these kind of batteries, they could make electric cars really, really start booming, reduce the cost of them, and make them much more popular with consumers.
I'm not
public-private projects. That's the way to go.
I'm not exact on this number, but it was something around 280, something less than 300,000 new jobs in the last quarter in just the solar sector alone in the renewable industry. That doesn't take into account wind generation or any other, And I thought that was fascinating. And when you juxtapose that with, these coal miners are going to be out of a job, but I'm of the mind that you already have a group of workers and engineers who already know how to shore up a mine. They already know how to wire it electrically. They already know the basics and how to build solar arrays and how to wire them up and how to use electrical cars to move their coal trains underground back and forth, for instance. So I don't know why that knowledge can't just totally be retooled and immediately put in place in solar and turbine.
It can
a no-brainer to me.
It can be, but here's the deal. Instead of waiting 20 years to wait for an investor to bring a business into a state to start producing some of those goods and services, the government needs to bring some of its money and power to work together with private businesses to create facilities where materials are being produced and jobs are being created. Once the government spends some of its money and some of its time working with private business to start facilities like that and jobs start being created, I mean, you know, we've got an 80-plus-year-old infrastructure in this country, water mains, sewer mains, treatment facilities for both of those things. There are tens of thousands of jobs, good paying construction jobs in that arena, and that's got to be government money because those are government services, and that's going to be federal, state, and local money projects combined.
A 10-inch oil pipe threads exactly the same as a 10-inch water pipe.
Yep.
For instance.
Yep.
There you go. Skills are fungible. It's not just money that's fungible. Skills are fungible too. Yeah. I'm with you.
If Hillary had won, I think we'd have had that infrastructure bill, maybe $1 trillion infrastructure bill to take care of coast to coast.
Yeah, we'd still have the same problem. We'd still have 2/3 of those seats in the U.S. House filled by Republicans, and they'd fight her tooth and nail.
Yeah.
I don't want to go down that road ever again. I know a lot of people like Hillary Clinton. I voted for her reluctantly because I'm a forward-thinking person, and I just think that she's part of the political system that we need to lay to rest.
Yeah.
The one that was aligned with the third way, that got us through the ultra far-right fundamentalist Christian uprising that, you know, resulted in Ronald Reagan's presidency. But that kind of politics is not appealing in any way, shape, or form to the rising generation that is demanding people pay attention to them and who are actually starting to turn out and vote in regular numbers. The people that are 25 to 40 years old in this country, they don't like the future that's being left for them, and they're starting to make their wishes known.
Yeah, thank the gods
That's
for
what
that.
this indivisible movement is. The Republicans in Congress, they were kind of like deers in the headlight 2 months ago, but now they're starting to look like that guy whose crazy ex-girlfriend won't go away, right? They're starting to get nervous about these indivisible people because they're not going away. They keep showing up. There are more and more knocks on their doors and calls on their phones. Their staffers are starting to be nervous. You got guys like Tom Cotton, of all people, saying publicly already that AHCA bill is dead on arrival.
Well,
the Republican Party is not so lockstep anymore.
Well, even Darrell Issa, though he's a weasel, he's gone a little bit back and forth. He doesn't know where the most danger lie within the broader constituency in his district, or the diehard bomb throwers, right? And in some cases, they might be literally bomb throwers.
Yeah, he's been around. He's been in Congress since 2001.
Right,
that's more than 15 years, and he likes his job, and he knows when to fish or cut bait. Right? He went on Bill Maher's show 10 days ago and said, we can't have a special prosecutor anymore because that statute's expired, but we need the Department of Justice to put a independent counsel on this Trump-Russia business. We have to. It's too scary.
Well, here's something interesting. Something interesting just to ponder on our way out, because we've gone a little bit over, which is okay because we have some cushion. Many different platforms. In fact, I believe even Maddow had a montage of headlines across the country. I looked into many of these publications, and surprisingly, they're Sinclair Broadcasting affiliated, if not outright owned. About 24 million will lose their insurance. 14 million will lose their insurance next year. I mean, it was a devastating attack against what I thought was their end game. so
When
maybe this is just more severe than even the extremists thought.
When the hospital organizations and ARP is against something,
right,
that's when you know that it's not going anywhere. Those two organizations alone are enough to kill any piece of legislation. And the person with egg on their face is not going to be Donald Trump, unfortunately. It's going to be Paul Ryan, which is good because I think that unseating Paul Ryan should be the number one mission of the DNC in 2018.
Yep.
Yeah, I like that. Let's do it.
Yep.
All right, Angie.
I seriously do think so.
Let's. We should codify that, make a manifesto. Actually, I think people are ahead of us on it right now. We just need to coordinate and do it. I think that's a great idea. All right, we'll talk.
I think Daily Kos should do a fundraiser on Act Blue just to unseat Paul Ryan.
All right. Sounds good with me.
Yep. I'm not
All right, let's talk next week with you, Angie. Thank you for today.
Yes, thank you.
All right, you guys have a great time. Talk to you next week. Bye.
Sure enough.
I know. Okay, folks, we better bug out of here. We got, let's see, John Prine and Dolores Keane playing In a Town This Size. And there may be a little bit of Stereolab's Cosmic Country Noir finishing up on the end, possibly. And what is it? It's Wednesday. Oh, my gosh. It's Jibber Your Jabber tonight with Wink. Begins at 9 p.m. on the West Coast, midnight on the East Coast. 2-hour opportunity for live call-in show. Plenty to talk about, and there's going to be more news. You just know it. Comey's going to say that Hillary's emails are the reason that Putin had to help Trump.
Exactly.
So we'll be talking about that possibly. And otherwise, stay tuned to Netroots Radio 24/7, 365. And why? Because who loves you, baby? Okay, Wink, I will see you on the other side.
All right. We're up.